Welcome back to the Dark Reading News Desk here at RSA. Terry Sweeney, contributing editor with Dark Reading, and joining me now is David Bradbury, Chief Security Officer with Okta. David, thanks so much for doing the Dark Reading News Desk.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Appreciate it. We are talking about the threat landscape and why identity is at the forefront. We just need to start and get the AI piece out of the way. Talk about the influence of AI on the threat landscape and security. Is it helping? Is it hurting? Most likely some combination. How do you break that down?
It's been really interesting to see how AI has been embraced by both threat actors but also the security community over the past 12 months. And I think on both sides of the equation, we're still experimenting.
Sure.
On both sides. We're seeing that threat actors are experimenting. I've seen the quality of phishing campaigns step up a notch. We're seeing simulated phishing campaigns. A voice recording of our own CEO was used against our employees recently using synthesized Gen AI. So we're seeing experimentation. I think on the security industry side, we're now starting to tap into the immense resources that AI really provides. I mean, I consider it to be the equivalent of 1,000 PhDs in math who are currently able to work simultaneously on trying to solve problems that we've not had a data science group as large as that historically. So that means we can apply that to all sorts of large, complex problems. If I think about what Okta does, and we have a front row seat into identity-based attacks, the billion authentications plus that we see every day creates a huge amount of signal. And so AI, I think, is going to allow us to really tap into that signal and really identify the bad patterns that allow us to take better actions to keep threat actors at bay.
You mentioned this deep fake breach that occurred to Okta a few months ago. Talk a bit, if you would, about some of the key lessons that were learned from that recent security incident, as well as just what the company's doing to bolster its own security efforts.
So we've seen, I think, a significant shift in where the battleground has been over the past 6 to 12 months when it comes to identity-based attacks. So with Okta's own incident back in October of last year, or I think about the Microsoft incident most recently, or even the MGM and Caesars breaches of last year, we've really seen that threat actors are going after session tokens. They're going after post-authentication rather than pre-authentication. And that is where I think the battleground has shifted, and that's where I think for ourselves and other companies who are critical infrastructure, particularly in the identity space, we've got a lot of ground to cover here in ensuring that we're covering both of those bases. We've invested so heavily as a company in multi-factor technology, all these pre-authentication components. But what we've seen with the significant lesson that we've learned from our own incident, but also these other incidents, is that we're seeing huge amounts of effort being poured into studying our technology, and they're trying to use our technology against our customers. And so the two things we're really focused on right now is thinking through how do we make sure that customers understand that the security tools we have available, they need to deploy them.
Sure.
We need to make that so easy. But we need to think about this brittle nature of the internet. The internet is connected by largely little small strings. If I'm connecting to a SaaS application, I've got an API token. If I'm connecting to an application from my browser, I've got a session cookie. And these tiny little strings, the brittle nature of these items, we haven't focused enough on securing these, and that's where the threat actors are moving to.
Well, just to fill in, it seems like what you're telling us is that the data contained in that post-authentication information really contains more of the keys to the kingdom. It's rich material for attackers to exploit.
It is, and it's so easy for them to exploit. If they can get access to your browser, they can literally copy and paste your cookies into their own browser and bypass all of the great login protections that we've put in place, bypass all of the multi-factor. And so that is where we are now focused as a company, is ensuring that we're focused on how do we protect these session tokens.
I mean, identity and ransomware seem to be the two pole stars of the security industry right now. The targets, the ongoing objects of just the big challenges that are really testing the industry.
They are, and sadly for many of our customers who are targeted by ransomware threat actors on a routine basis, it's up to all of us in the industry to make sure that we're providing the right tools that they can protect themselves and make sure that they can't get a start.
David, can you tell us more about the kinds of information that's contained in that post-authentication? A bit more about how that actually works.
Yeah, so when you successfully log into any application at work, or at home, that credential is being, that login is being validated. And then once it's been validated, you get minted a special little cookie, a special little string that gets stored in your browser that is the record of you having successfully logged in. Now, sadly, that piece of information is secured only by the computer that you're sitting on, which we all know is subject to malware attacks and phishing attacks. And if you sadly fall victim to one of these, a threat actor can quite easily lift these small strings out of your browser, insert them into their own browser, and then all of the applications that you've logged into are now accessible by that threat actor. And so to solve that problem, the industry as a whole, we've come together and we've figured out how to solve this problem. The challenge now is one of implementation. And so at Okta, we've implemented a number of these mechanisms that prevent people from being able to steal session tokens for specific Okta applications. But I need the same focus of all SaaS vendors, of all the technology vendors out there. There is this acronym that isn't getting enough airplay, which is this acronym called DPOP, DPOP, Distributed Proof of Possession. It's part of the OAuth spec from last year. Okay. It was published. And this is the solution to how you secure session tokens for all applications. Now it's a question of implementation. And so as I talk to product leaders from some of these vendors, I ask them, where is this on your roadmap? How are you going to secure these tokens? And they tell me, no one's asking for this, David. And so we've got a problem there, I think, as an industry, and I'm doing my best with the security community to make sure that CISOs understand this is a question we need to be asking more of all of our vendors.
It's not just nice to have, it's actually going to be essential going forward.
Exactly. It needs to be thought of in the same way that I will ask all of my vendors, do you support multi-factor? Do you support single sign-on? We need to be asking the question, do you support DPOP? Again, it's a strange acronym, it's new, but we need to have secure session tokens to prevent the rising wave of attacks that we're seeing these days.
David, in addition to DPOP, what additional innovations or offerings are online to help customers with this issue?
There are three key elements that I think come to play into the picture of how we solve for the current range of attacks we're seeing, particularly that are focused on this post-authentication side of things. One aspect of that is DPOP. We need to secure the session tokens that everybody is minting every time you log into an application. We need to secure those. We have a good solution, now we need to implement. In the same vein, we've had a mechanism to log people out of applications for some time. You know, the idea that if we see as Okta that somebody has had something occur to them from, say, a malware has been detected on their machine, we should be able to log them out of all the applications that they are logged into. It's something called single logout, SLO. Again, it's something that's very well described, but not well implemented across the board. And so that's another element that we're pushing very hard for. Everyone should be expecting every application to have single sign-on, multi-factor, DPOP, single logout, and then the very last piece is the shared signals extension, the Continuous Access Evaluation Protocol, CAEP, gives us the ability as a company to share signals, risk signals between companies without relying upon customers to do that themselves. Now this is a really big deal. The idea that we can share signals with Microsoft and Microsoft can share them back with us, and that we can do that as an industry and we do that automatically, so that if we detect that you've been compromised, we log you out, we talk, Microsoft has seen that you've been compromised, they tell us, we take action. There is a well-defined framework and it's only just starting to get implemented. And so what we're doing as part of an ecosystem is focusing on these three different areas as these are the solutions. We've got really good, clean solutions for how we solve for the post-authentication world. Now we need to implement, and that's going to take the entire industry to move with it, and that needs to be driven in two different ways. I will do my best to drive this with the CISO community, and we can do something there, but we also need the vendor community like ourselves to step into this in a big way, which we are, and many others are too.
David, take us out with any advice or best practices that you might be able to share on how organizations can further protect themselves against these kinds of threats.
We still see that phishing is still a huge attack vector for threat actors coming after our customers. I know it's 2024, but it's still the case that phishing is just successful, and threat actors will continue to use the tools that they find successful.
They just need one click, right?
They just need one click. We've got great solutions to this. We've got hardware authenticators from companies like YubiKey. You've got software authenticators from companies like ours. But sadly, only 4% of all authentications on the Okta platform today are phishing resistant. 96% are currently phishable because people think that it's too hard to adopt these. They looked at hardware tokens 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and decided it was too difficult. Well, let me tell you, that is a lot more easy to deploy now and a lot more easy to manage, and we really do need to embrace the tools that we've got available to us to solve these problems. And so phishing resistant technology, this is one thing that I think everybody can walk away with and take back to the table and really think hard of how can you make this happen at your company.
Well, you leave us and end us on a note of both anxiety and hopefulness. So bravo to you. David, thanks so much for coming by Dark Reading News Desk.
Thanks for the time.
We've been talking with David Bradbury of Okta. This has been Terry Sweeney with the Dark Reading News Desk. Thanks for joining us for this segment. We'll see you next time.